Quorum call.
Madam Speaker. I got you.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 128 members present, the House is now in session. The clerk will read the journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, March the 7th, 2021.
Recognizing the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of journal from the previous day.
So ordered. Petitions, memorials, and other papers. Message from the Senate consent calendar. Senate bills introduced in the House.
Senate Bill 9, Senator Kramer, appropriations.
Madam Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the reading of Senate Bill 9 be considered the reading of all the bills on the calendar.
Hearing no objections, the bills are read the first time and referred to the appropriate committee. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. There being 131 members present, this House is still in order. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 69. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 588, Budget Bill, Fiscal Year 2022.
Recognizing the Appropriations Committee Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to just take 2 minutes to talk a little bit about this budget and the BRFA. I think it's worth just pausing to realize what we have done in this budget. There's a saying, that someone has met their moment. And I think this budget has met the moment, the time we are in. It fully funds our local health departments. It fully passes through all of the assistance from the federal government and from the governor to protect Maryland residents from COVID. It maintains our commitment to public schools by funding Kirwan initiatives and ensuring that local systems are at least held level funded this year. But more importantly, it helps schools open, which I think is worth highlighting about this budget. It passes through the money that we agreed to, all of us, in the Relief Act to do that. It builds up our reserves by $1.8 billion. I have never been able to say that on the floor of the House of Delegates, but it does. It pays off, or it has a cash reserve that can pay off the next 2 years' deficit. Madam Speaker, the budget before us does many good things. It's fiscally sound, but it funds our priorities. Most importantly, it strategically places the state in an advantageous position to continue supporting individuals, particularly low-income earners, and businesses that continue to be impacted as we transition out of this pandemic. I'm particularly proud that this year I can stand before you and say we fully funded CADE formula. Our community colleges will get help. We fully funded Sellinger. Our private schools will get help because they too are struggling, just as every school is struggling in this pandemic. So we've done a lot of great things, and I want to thank the Appropriation Committee, each and every member, for their input, and all of you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate all the hard work of the committee. I know that this is a big task to take over, and we had a lot of debate yesterday night. I do intend to vote for the budget, but I am still really concerned that we're making policy changes for the state of Maryland through the budget. We are telling private schools you don't get money unless you follow our moral guidelines. We are telling children who are living in some of the most chronically failing school districts in our state, who have been failing for 40 and 50 years, that they now are going to be forced to be trapped in the school district. There's no way out for them. And we're doing all that through the budget process. And I find that really unconscionable, and I'm very disappointed to see that we're moving in that direction. So I will be voting for the budget, but I am very disappointed that we're now legislating through the budget instead of having real hearings where our people can really come down and talk about these issues and be heard. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 125 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 588, the budget bill, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to explain my vote.
Explain her vote. Bill is gone. We already.
To explain my vote?
You took the call. I already took the call. So.
All right.
Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 589, Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act of 2021.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 116 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 589, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. And I'd like to extend my congratulations to the chairman, vice chairman, and all the members of appropriations on the fine work you did on both these bills. Report of the Committee on Economic Matters, report number 23. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 561, Renewable Energy Portfolio Standard, Wastewater, Thermal, and Other Renewable Sources. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes changes to the eligible uses of methane from certain sources and limits wastewater thermal facilities to those on Maryland's grid or using Maryland wastewater. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on the Environment and Transportation, report number 27. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 579, Snare Traps, Prohibition Against Sale or Possession, Alterations. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Be so much considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, HB 579 removes Cecil County from the existing county-specific prohibition against the use, sale, possession, setting, placement, and maintenance of a snare trap. The amendment strike repeal of the prohibition against possessing, I can't read today, a snare trap in certain counties. Please move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 807, Task Force to review and update the Maryland Recycling Act. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Be so much consider the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
As amended, the bill establishes a task force on recycling policy and recycling and waste systems in Maryland. By June 30th, 2022, the task force must report to specified committees of the General Assembly on 1, how to update the Maryland Recycling Act, and 2, the feasibility of implementing regional recycling and waste disposable facilities. Committee amendment number 1 makes technical changes. Committee amendment number 2 alters the membership and duties of the task force, delays the date by which the task force must report its findings and recommendations, and delays the termination date of the task force. Madam Speaker, move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question is now adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report has been adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 933, Anne Arundel County Transfer Tax Housing Trust Special Revenue Fund. Favorable.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing Subcommittee Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, because in the E&T Committee we are so very, very respectful of local courtesy. The Anne Arundel delegation has asked us to refer this back to committee for purposes of amendment. Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Speaker.
The motion is to recommit HB 933 back to the committee. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill has been referred back to committee. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 980, Prince George's County Public Ethics Definition of Application. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The committee amendment simply adds an 18-month sunset. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Special order calendar number 69. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 317, Maryland Green Purchasing Committee, Food and Beverage Procurement, Greenhouse Gas Emissions. Favorable report is amended. Adopted.
Recognizing the gentleman from Colville.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have some questions for the floor leader.
Certainly.
How are you?
Okay.
So the question is, I did read the bill and I have the reprint, and I'm just trying to figure out the true purpose of the bill. Did read the bill. So the bill does what?
The bill, let's put it in context. The emissions from its belching from cows and other animals are a significant source of greenhouse gas emissions. And in order for us to meet our obligations under the Paris Accords, this is one step that the state should study in terms of how, when we are purchasing food and beverage products, we should take that into account. The extent, and with the amendments, considering other factors as well.
So the bill is trying to measure the flatulence coming out of cows?
I've already answered that, I
Honest
think, with my
question.
original. Well,
So it sounds like
that's how I described the bill.
That's part of it. That's part of what the bill does. How about with? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And there is scientific research. This is not a zero-sum game. There is scientific research going on that is seeking to, how can we reduce the amount of greenhouse gas emissions, methane, from animals, from livestock, so that we can both have a healthier environment and preserve this industry.
So it's also, I guess, applying to the chicken farms on the Eastern Shore as well?
Yes, it would.
Okay, and the greenhouse gas emissions that are produced by chickens, what is that? I honestly don't know. What emissions do they produce?
I would
Chickens.
assume it's from feces.
Okay, and that would be the same thing with cows, I guess?
No, the principal concern with cows is belching.
It's belching.
Yes,
Really?
that's what I read.
Okay. So if you, in Southern Maryland, we've been working on this regional meat processing center for many years. And we've been working on it because the administration of, 25 years ago, put tobacco out of business. And so the farmers have been trying to find ways of making a living. And so they have a regional processing plant there that we're putting in place in conjunction with the Amish. And the state's funding it.
If I may?
Sorry?
If I may?
Yes, please.
As part of the Cigarette Restitution Fund,
That's right.
and I was, along with the late Delegate Rawlings, the lead sponsor of that bill, specifically in that bill, in that law, that we are to use funding from big tobacco from the settlement to provide alternative sources for the tobacco farmers in Southern Maryland.
Sure. So, and we've seen bills where we want farmers to grow food and people to buy food from those farmers in the state so that we can support those farmers. And I guess where I'm going with this, it sure seems like this particular bill is in conflict with the funding that's going to our farmers and in the direction that they're going in order to be able to maintain their farms moving forward. Is there any concern about that in the committee?
Yes, there is. We listened to our colleagues' testimony as well as in discussing the bill in subcommittee and full committee, and have added to the in the law that this the work group is to consider the effect that their purchases would have on state-owned businesses in terms of the transportation costs that would arise if, to the extent that we're not buying in-state. So that would cover your concern.
So how about, it wouldn't, to be fair, it wouldn't cover the concern of basically what the bill's intent is, which seems to me is to say, don't raise cows and chickens anymore. Then if that's not the intent of the bill, I just want to try to clarify.
Certainly. Appreciate your yielding. The intent of the bill is to study the impact of the process by which the food that the state buys in its capacity in prisons, in hospitals, state hospitals, and in university system.
So how do you measure? The purpose of the bill also, it seems, is to measure the greenhouse gas emissions coming from these animals. How would one measure the greenhouse gas emissions coming from a belching cow or from the feces from?
I would yield to the scientists on that, but there is an existing body an existing law that studies this issue for us and would be, and certainly there would be further scientific input into that process. We're not going to legislate that.
And who would be measuring, responsible in our government here in Maryland of measuring all that gas?
Scientists. We would expect with the interim reports and the methodology that is to be presented to us, and we've delayed this whole process by 12 months so there can be further input from all knowledgeable and affected parties.
Well, Department of Government Services, DGS, says that it would be going on them. They would have to be doing that, and they don't know how to measure, is what they're saying. They're wondering, this is not a function of DGS, but it's being made a function of them. How would they, and they're asking, how would we measure this? Would we go out and put meters on cows and measure how often it burped or farted? Or I don't know. It's an honest question.
Well, my honest answer would be that they should consult Department of Agriculture, which is part of this process, as well as the land, not just the land grant colleges, but there are experts within our university system as well as around the country
And is it,
to do
thank
this.
you. I appreciate that. And obviously there was a lot of testimony from the Cattlemen's Association and the Farm Bureau. I'm assuming that you know that they're all against this. And I'm just trying to figure out, since they are against it, and for good reason, what is the plan now? Because this is important about predictability. What we found in Southern Maryland, and I have no doubt I can speak to Eastern Shore about this as well, is we can't get predictability anymore because of bills like this that could potentially put our farmers out of business yet again. First from tobacco, and as you called it, big tobacco, but apparently big marijuana is okay. And now so they can't grow tobacco, and that was the policy of the state, and it passed. And now what the policy of the state is with this bill, well, growing farm animals or having farm animals is also bad. So what predictability can we give to the farmers that they can do to earn a living and pay taxes on their land?
The bill is a study, and it's a process that mandates input or in notifying us of the nature of that study. And we also have the history of that we did follow through with the farmers, with the tobacco farmers in Southern Maryland. We said there would be money to address their needs in the long term, and there was. And we could make such a commitment here again.
And I do appreciate that. And there are a couple of issues, of course, with the funding, because not all the funding has even come close to come to the region. It keeps Southern Maryland to the farmers, which is, of course, a different issue with appropriations. But I guess my concern is that they're on, and they have been on this path. And by the way, this includes Charles County, Calvert County, Prince George's County, and St. Mary's County. They've been on this path to have this meat processing plant with all these farmers that were growing tobacco now having cows for a variety of reasons. Some have sheep, some have lamb. The Amish community, one of their biggest customers customer bases is in Northern Virginia, and they come there. People come from Northern Virginia, the Muslim community does, to the Amish community for various products as well. It just seems like this is derailing all of that effort and all that tobacco restitution money that is gone for this purpose.
I think it would be premature to reach that conclusion.
Because
this is a study.
Got it. So it's just a study, but
and it's similar to the tobacco instance because for health reasons, we wanted to discourage the growing of tobacco. And here, for health reasons, the health of the climate, we want to address the methane that comes from cattle and other animals.
And to be clear, the driving force... Go ahead, if you want to say...
Go ahead.
And to be clear, the driving force of this bill is, and I'm almost done, Madam Speaker, I appreciate this. The driving force of this bill, it seems, is the Paris Climate Accords. I just want to make that clear.
That is one aspect, but we are aware independently of that, of the need to address climate change.
We're yielding the sovereignty of the farmers to Paris, of all places.
That's not how, I don't think that's a fair characterization.
Would the chairman yield?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Committee Chair.
The bill is about my grandchildren. I'd like them to have clean air to breathe. And I'm sure you love your family and you want them to have clean air to breathe. This does not limit what is looked at to just emissions from animals. And let's acknowledge, in particular, the chicken farmers have improved the way they grow chickens in Maryland, maybe all over the country, I wouldn't know that, but in Maryland they've made progress. And that's good. That's what we want them to do. I eat chicken, I eat beef, I eat fish. I like those things. They're healthy. My children eat them. They're healthy, and my grandchildren eat them. We also need to breathe the air. We need to not have our climate turn into a hot box / icicle. We don't want to see the oceans rise. And this is taking a very small step at looking at the issues that are contributing to climate change. And we need to do that for our grandchildren. Simply put, this will require general services to be looking at these issues. They have broad authority to look at whatever contributes to pollution, including trucks driving on the highways.
Of course.
Wear of tires on the highways. I honestly don't know if that pollutes, but I'm going to guess it does. There's all kinds of pollution. It's not just about animal.
I appreciate that, and I think it's just important to note that you have grandchildren. I have children.
Yep.
And I also have around me where I live farmers, and
as do I.
And I'm really concerned about the lives of those farmers, because the policies that so many of these committees are changing literally on an annual basis is making it impossible. So now we're going to have DGS knocking. Hold on, we're going to have DGS knocking on the farmers' doors, in addition to MDE, in addition to the Department of Ag, in addition to all the other counties. And if you actually talk to a farmer and you actually got the book that they can provide you that's about that thick in order for them just to be able to operate their farms, you would see and you would understand the absurdity of the regulation. And this is adding, and I know it's a study, but we know where studies go. There's just one more layer in that book for them to do. And I know we're debating the bill, Madam Speaker, but go ahead.
There is a time frame, and the time frame is 2024 to begin developing reports. That is some time to figure out how to measure things. The Department of Agriculture is in this. It is intended to be cooperative. It is intended to be good for your children, and my grandchildren. And we need to start with the things we do have control over, which is what we purchase. We're not telling other people what they can purchase, but we're looking at what we purchase and what can make a difference in our world.
And I appreciate that, and I have no doubt that at some point this study will turn into a bill that does tell people what they can and can't eat. I have no doubt about that. That's the goal, ultimately. And I'll have an opportunity to debate this on third reader, Madam Speaker. I do very much appreciate you giving me the time to ask questions on this bill. Thank you.
Yeah.
Madam Speaker.
Gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Floor Leader. So I've been listening to this debate a little bit, and I am the farmer that owns gassy animals, and I actually eat a diet of almost all meat and just vegetables. So do you anticipate the outcome of this study, which I think it sounds like you do, will be that the recommendation is to limit foods that are methane causing, like red meats, white meats, things of that nature?
That is to be studied. That recommendation is to come before us, and I'm not going to predict the outcome. But we do know, as a matter of fact, that there is an issue, there is a problem with the methane produced by the animals, and we are hopeful that this can be addressed in a way that is healthy for those of us who are here now, future generations, and the farming community, chicken, beef, so on, as well. That's what we do here, is we try and reach that compromise.
Sometimes I feel like that's what we do. Sometimes it feels like we're just grandstanding, but I understand the gentleman's response. A couple years back, in 2006, there was a movie that came out, An Inconvenient Truth. I went and saw the movie. I thought it was really good. My parents were thinking about buying a beach house, oceanfront, and I said, "Don't do it. We're going to be underwater." And thank God they ignored me. Still a beautiful beachfront condo. I'm very concerned that this bill could end up being, in 2024, when we see ocean levels still have not risen at all, that we're going to be still pushing forward with the implementation of a plan that comes out of this study. Is there any guarantee that if we are still not seeing, I think in 2006 it was 10 years until we'd be underwater, if we still don't see that, is there any implementation process or stopgap so that we don't move forward with implementing these changes?
We're here every January.
That's true, but...
And I would say that there are cities like Miami, and not just Miami, New York City. Look at what Sandy, the hurricane, did to lower Manhattan, that what Al Gore said in The Inconvenient Truth is in fact an inconvenient truth. It may not have happened as quickly as you recall it said it would, but there are serious planners who are taking steps, not just planning, to respond to the rising tide.
Yeah, I think that the whole science had to be rewritten because it was previously called global warming, and then when the warming didn't happen, we had to change it to climate change, and the water never ended up rising. So there's been a lot of changes that I've seen happen to this. But so your plan is to reassess it after
Does the
that.
lady have an amendment?
No, I'm just trying to get questions answered on where this bill's going to go.
That's a third reader debate.
Okay, thank you, Madam
Okay.
Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Floor Chair.
Madam Speaker.
Does anyone have actual amendments to this bill?
Madam Speaker, I don't have an amendment, but I have two very simple, direct questions that may help us understand the bill better, and that's all I'll ask, I promise.
Gentleman from Western Maryland.
Thank you. My friend, my former professor, the bill also applies, we talked about, cows, cattle, livestock. So would this incorporate a study of things like how we're using dairy, cheese, milk, those things would also be incorporated into?
It's food and beverages that are purchased by the state for prisons, hospitals, and university system.
You answered both of my questions with one answer. So this applies to
Talk well.
our prison. I have two very, very large prisons, two of the largest in the state that are in my district. That's who this is directed to, is our state purchasing power for foodstuffs and other things of that nature.
But we added language specifically to the bill that part of the review, part of the study is to look at the impact upon the health and the diet of those people in those institutions.
And do you have any sense of how much of the total amount of these particular products, whether it be meat, chicken, dairy products, how much of the total amount that's being consumed in the state of Maryland is actually being purchased through these particularized state entities? I'm just wondering, because it would seem to me it would be a very small amount.
We don't know. I would assume that would be part of the study report we would get back, but it sets an example.
That's an example. Okay. Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you.
The gentleman from Cecil in the Annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just had a technical question, and then based on those answers, potentially a special order. Could the floor leader yield for a question or two?
Certainly.
So I had some concerns about this bill in first draft, and now reading the amendments, it sounds like they're trying to winnowcast where the research is being done. I take everybody back to middle school where we learned about the carbon cycle and the fact that plants, when they're grown, give off nitrous oxide, methane, etc. During their life cycle, and then also when they decompose, they give off these gases as well. The bill with the amendments on it now just seems to look at part of the cycle. And that part of the cycle is when the animal is processed, butchered, etc., and then transported from place to place. And the point that I wanted to make here is that the largest contributor to CO2 emissions and greenhouse gases and global warming and all the things discussed today is from burning fossil fuels. When a cow or a sheep or any bovine consumes these materials, they don't have some incinerator inside of them that spits out these noxious gases on the other end. Those plants were already going to give off those gases. It's just part of the life cycle. So if we're only looking at the tail end of this cycle, then it's going to yield information that says yes. The cows and whatnot are creating this, but that's not the entire picture. And that's also not what's leading to global warming and climate change and all these things. So with the amendments, my concern is that it's going to be a skewed result because we're not looking at the entire cycle. And, for that reason, I would just request, can I special order the bill for purpose of an amendment to just say, hey, we need to look at this process. Because here's the thing. Cows, especially because of their stomach system, have the ability to take plants that humans could never eat and turn them into a protein that we can consume and sustain life with. Those plants would have, if we only harvested the cob off the corn, which we can ingest and process, the rest of that plant is still going to decay and is still going to give off methane and all the things that are associated with what this bill talks about. However, if we feed them to a cow, the cow can then turn that into a digestible protein that humans can have. So I would like to look at the entire cycle.
Is the gentleman asking for a special order? The
That
bill
is correct.
has been on a special order. I defer to the chair of the committee.
That's correct, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This bill has been on special order. This bill is no surprise. It's gone through a fairly normal process. What's the bill number? It's early on, 317. I'm sorry to say I don't think it's appropriate to special order this bill a second time.
But, Madam Speaker, if I may.
For philosophical reasons, I suggest you do what you need to do on your vote on third reader.
Madam Speaker.
The motion before the House is a special order again, the special order.
One last comment,
Are
Madam
you
Speaker, if I may.
pressing your motion, gentlemen?
I'd like to press my motion only because these amendments that were just adopted drastically change the outcome of the bill that I was already concerned with in the first place. So yes, I would like to press the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Roll call, Madam Speaker.
Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Question fails. The bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Appropriations, report number 10. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 436, Enoch Pratt Free Library, operating hours and funding, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the Fable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Fable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 456, Correctional Officers Retirement System, Kent County, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the Fable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Fable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 514, Maryland Legal Services Corporation funding, abandoned property, favorable.
Question for the House is adoption of the Fable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Fable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 937, State Lottery Fund, Maryland Humanities Council, funding, favorable.
Question for the House is adoption of the Fable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Fable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1268, Legal Education Success Collaborative, established, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the Fable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Fable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Appropriations, report number 11. Clerk, read the first bill.
House Bill 45, Education, Baltimore County Public Library, collective bargaining, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much to be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment 1 is technical. Amendment 2 defines confidential employee. Amendment 3 defines management and supervisory employees and clarifies that the bill does not apply to confidential management and supervisory employees. The amendment also establishes that a supervisory employee includes an employee who uses independent judgment in exercising authority to fill the employee's job duties. Amendment 4 establishes procedures for certification, the election of an exclusive representative, arbitration, and decertification. An employee organization must be certified under the bill in order to negotiate a collective bargaining agreement. Amendment 5 requires the employer to stop making payroll deductions if the exclusive representative resigns from membership in the employee organization. Amendment 6 is technical. Amendment 7 prohibits an employee organization from disciplining a member for retaliation and authorizes an employee who is represented by an employee organization to discuss any matter with the employer. The amendment also establishes the rights of the employer to determine and control its operations, among other things. An employee or an employee organization may not engage in, induce, initiate, direct, support, or ratify a strike, and an employer may request a court to enjoin a strike. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 867, Baltimore Regional Neighborhood Initiative Program Fund. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Morning, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 removes the sunset. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 891, Higher Education Hunger-Free Campus Grant Program established. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
There's amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 adds regional higher education centers and clarifies language around food pantries. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Gentleman from St. Mary's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a couple of questions from the floor leader. I'm looking at the bill. It looks like it establishes a grant to buy college-age students free food.
No,
is that what it is?
This is actually it addresses food insecurity on our college campuses. It is a grant program, but it is established by MHEC, and it's $150,000 a year. And it is also a matching grant for community colleges and our four-year public institutions, and now our regional higher education centers as well.
So that's interesting. Is it means tested at all?
I'm sorry?
Is there any means test for the students getting the free meals?
Yeah, there is. So a task force, in order to be part of the program, you have to have a task force on each campus. The task force, in coordination with MHEC, actually establishes the parameters of the program, who can be involved, and also makes sure that there are reports that are given to MHEC as well as to the General Assembly.
So can you tell me what is the criteria? Because, I mean, as far as the mean testing goes for the students, like is there an income limit, I'm guessing? Because there's a lot of college-age students that don't have a lot of money.
There are a lot of college-age students that don't have a lot of money, including myself when I was a college-age student. So this is really a setup for first-generation students as well as students that, of course, are not on that platinum plan that individuals, unfortunately, I wasn't on that platinum plan, and so I couldn't eat food all day long like some others. But this is established so that individuals can go to either a food pantry or work to find food in a way that doesn't, show that a person is living in poverty.
Gotcha. I appreciate your questions, or answering my questions. Thank you.
Any additional comments or amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1253, National Capital Strategic Economic Development Program, eligibility. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 clarifies the differences in eligibility around Prince George's and Montgomery counties. Amendment also removes the sunset. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1277, State Personnel Management System, Office of the Public Defender, placement. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Be so much considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 repeals a provision of law that excludes attorneys in the Office of the Public Defender from using grievance procedures in the state personnel system. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Health and Government Operations, report number 15. Clerk, read the first bill.
House Bill 190, Procurement, Specialized Printing Services Contracts, Board of Public Works approval. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Move so much be considered the reading amendment.
So ordered.
The sole amendment adds to the definition of specialized printing services a limitation to those worth at least $100,000. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 299, State Board of Physicians, Genetic Counselors, Licensing. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 provides for the practice of genetic counseling under qualified supervision and provides for a quorum of the Genetic Counseling Advisory Committee. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 416, Healthcare Facilities, Assisted Living Programs, Memory Care, and Alzheimer's Disease Unit Regulations. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 requires MDH to establish for Alzheimer's special care units in assisted living programs the number of dementia-specific training hours for staff, the topic content of the training requirements, and sufficient staffing requirements to meet the needs of residents. The amendment also requires MDH to convene stakeholders to make revisions to assisted living regulations dated September 30th, 2016, and adopt the revised regulations by December 1st, 2022. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 600, State Board of Examiners for Audiologists, Hearing Aid Dispensers, and Speech Language Pathologists, Duties, Appointment of Members, and Requirements for Licensees. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 amends how nominees for the board membership are selected. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 758, Maryland Licensure of Certified Midwives Act. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 provides for training requirement for certain applicants or licensees and for the reinstatement of a licensee under certain conditions. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 915, Work Group on Black, Latino, and other underrepresented mental health professionals. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 includes Asian American Pacific Islanders in the scope of the work group, changes references from mental health to behavioral health, adds to the membership 2 to 4 representatives of organizations, networks, or associations of behavioral health professionals that are composed of and work to represent and support underrepresented behavioral health professionals, and authorizes the work group to establish subgroups to assist the work group in carrying out its duties. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 919, Maryland Insurance Commissioner, Specialty Mental Health Services, and Payment of Claims Enforcement. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 applies to the Administrative Services Organization statutory provisions that 1. Require the payment of interest on clean claims that are not paid in a timely manner, establish penalties for violations of the clean claim payment law, and 3. Authorizes the Maryland Insurance Administration to conduct a market conduct examination. The amendment also prohibits an ASO from using state funds or passing through to the state expenses for a market conduct examination, prohibits MIA from requiring the payment of interest or imposing fines or penalties if a certain determination is made that the ASO will use state funds or pass the cost of the interest or penalty to the state. It requires MIA to submit its findings from clean claim complaint investigations to MDH, requires MIA to submit any market conduct examination of an ASO to specific committees, and establishes a termination date for the Act. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1013, General Provision, Standard Time, Year-Round Daylight Saving Time. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Move so much be considered the reading amendment.
So ordered.
The one amendment makes the act contingent upon the adoption of similar legislation by contiguous states and the district. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. The gentleman from Western Maryland in the annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was looking forward to this bill, and I guess it's about time that it's now here. And so this bill, I just have a question for the floor leader.
Certainly.
Great. It looks like this bill is taking us to Eastern Daylight Time, full time, And I guess my question is, why do we decide to go with Eastern Daylight Time instead of Standard Time?
Because the committee felt overall, on balance, that providing more daylight time towards the end of the day was a better policy. Because more things would happen. People would be better able to take advantage of the extra hour.
Have any other states gone with like this type of time? I know some states have gone with Standard Time.
I just know that 14 states have moved to have a uniform time throughout the year.
Well, yes, a uniform
But for
time.
us to move forward, the other states and the district would have to concur.
Right, the other states that use Eastern Standard Time.
No, the other contiguous states.
Oh, so just
Delaware, Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia, and the district.
So just if those states do it. Have any of those states passed this type of law?
Delaware, first in the nation, was one of those, yes, one of the 14.
Okay. And then, right now, this seems to be at the congressional level what different states are going to use. Have we considered writing a letter to our congressional delegation to D.C.?
Well, we would have to take this action in order for the federal law to, that's the action we would have to take for the federal law to take effect, for the Congress then to have to okay what we want to do. They will be suitably, if we pass the bill, our congressional delegation will be informed.
Right, but couldn't they also just pass it on their own without the states?
Oh, they could, but we're trying to protect states' rights here. And that's what the Congress is provided for under existing law.
Well, of course, I agree with that. States' rights are wonderful.
Thought you might.
Okay, so it sounds like Delaware has done it so far. No one else in the Eastern who would be affected would do this yet. And it sounds like you're trying to help us join Delaware and then maybe set some kind of a...
Create momentum.
For this policy.
To move forward, yes.
Does Delaware's also say that it needs to be contiguous states like Maryland and I guess they're adjacent to New Jersey?
I do not know.
Okay. I'll have to look into that. All right, thank you very much, Floater.
Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1039, Health Occupation State Board of Massage Therapy Examiners, revisions. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be consider the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 restores language currently in law that clarifies the definition of massage therapy. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1148, Secretary of Health, School-Based Health Centers, Guidelines, and Administration of Grants. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments? Any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1193, Certified Nursing Assistants, Certificate Renewal, Training Program Requirements. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1212, Procurement, Socially and Economically Disadvantaged Workers Protection Preference. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 changes the title of the bill to reflect the formation of a work group and makes other technical changes. Amendment number 2 provides for the duty, composition, and reporting requirements of the work group. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. The gentleman from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the floor leader rise for just a quick question?
Certainly.
Thank you. So this bill deals with procurement and then socially and economically disadvantaged workers. I understand all that. I was curious to see in the fiscal note that in Maryland, you are considered economically disadvantaged if you have a net worth of $1.7 million?
That language comes from existing law dealing with ownership of business entities. And that was brought to our attention during consideration of the bill. And one of the specific tasks of the work group under the amendments is to review that and for sure come up with a definition for this bill deals with a preference in contracts if you hire people who are disadvantaged. So there would be a new definition coming out of this effort when there's a bill before us next year.
Well, I appreciate that response, and I would suggest that in that work group, you take a hard look at it, because I would argue that giving preference to millionaires when there are plenty of other actual disadvantaged individuals in our state would be a priority. So thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Are there any additional comments? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1280, Health, Maryland Community Health and Public Safety Center of Excellence Establishment. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 1280 establishes the Maryland Community Health and Public Safety Center for Excellence within the Governor Office of Crime Prevention, Youth and Victim Services. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 makes technical changes. Amendment number 2 defines certain terms, requires the center to continuously monitor and analyze their plans for opportunities to reduce and eliminate disparities in the criminalization of racial minorities with behavioral health disorders, requiring the office to appoint certain individuals to oversee the center, authorizes the center to coordinate with the Justice Reimbursement Oversight Board, provides for the intent of the General Assembly that the center apply for certain federal grant funding, and alters the requirements for the strategic plan and the 2-year plan required for local jurisdictions. Move the amendment, Madam Speaker.
The question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the Fable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Fable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Ways and Means, report number 25. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 495, Income Tax, Internal Revenue Code Amendments, and the Federal CARES Act decoupling. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes provisions that would have decoupled the state from certain alterations to the Internal Revenue Code by the Federal CARES Act. Move the amendments.
The question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the Fable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Fable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 804, Taxes, Whistleblower Reward Program, and Statute of Limitations for Tax Collections. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 clarifies the circumstances under which a whistleblower may be eligible to receive an award for providing original information to the comptroller, and the determination and allocation of an award where multiple whistleblowers are eligible for an award. Limits the circumstances under which a whistleblower may challenge a determination by the comptroller concerning an award, strikes language requiring the comptroller to provide certain status updates to a whistleblower or the whistleblower's counsel regarding an investigation, and limits the circumstances under which the comptroller may be required to disclose information that might reveal the identity of a whistleblower. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the Fable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Fable report is adopted. The Minority Whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the floor leader rise, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us the whistleblower reward program? It sounds like a bounty. Give me a little more information about that.
Sure. So for a number of years now, the IRS has had a whistleblower reward program that this is modeled on that creates an incentive for people to do the right thing and report when somebody is cheating on their taxes. And it has recovered for the federal government many, many millions of dollars. So this program is modeled on that. It would create a system under which a whistleblower whose information led to the recovery of back taxes, of owed taxes by somebody who's cheating on their taxes, would be able to be awarded a portion of the money recovered.
So how would this work in a divorce settlement? So clearly, you know, you have a bad divorce and the one spouse knows the other spouse has been cheating on their taxes. Would this reward the person for turning their ex-spouse in for cheating on their taxes?
Under those narrow circumstances, I mean, there's nothing in the bill that speaks to whether the people were married or not.
Okay, so that would work. How about a disgruntled employee? So a disgruntled employee can now turn in their boss. What is the due process here? Is this going to create all kinds of problems for a business owner that isn't cheating on their taxes, yet has a disgruntled employee turn them in, and then the comptroller comes and turns their office upside down?
Comptroller's office does these types of investigations on a regular basis. It would affect the business owner if that business owner had violated the law by not paying their taxes.
Yeah, but they obviously have to do an investigation before they can determine that. So again, a disgruntled employee calls the comptroller, says, you know, company XYZ has been cheating on their taxes. So then tell me I want to know what this looks like. So then the comptroller comes, knocks on your door, business owner XYZ. We have an allegation that you've been cheating on your taxes. We're sending a full audit team in to audit your books. What does this look like after that happens?
It looks like any other audit of a taxpayer. This does not change the audit process, the investigation process in the comptroller's office.
So it really could turn into disgruntled employees harassing business owners. Because, I mean, sure, the comptroller does random spot audits, and I mean, any business owner any person that's ever been audited, it's frightening. I mean, and it's disruptive. You know, look, I get audited every year by my insurance company, and that's disruptive. But I can't imagine how this looks to me like a bounty program that's going to turn into disgruntled employees turning in their ex-bosses. What provisions have you put in there to stop that from happening? Are there any penalties for people who do this and it's founded to be untrue?
Under existing law, you know, there are false report penalties.
Yeah, but you're protecting the whistleblower. What provisions aside? I mean, if they're anonymous, how can the company? I'm not convinced that you've put in sufficient protections for when you set a bounty program up, that you haven't put in sufficient protections for false allegations of this kind of thing.
There was no question.
Yeah, that was my question. What are you doing to protect people from false allegations? Because you said it's anonymous. So how does company XYZ then be able to come back and say, you know, you've caused me 2 weeks of my bookkeeper and accountant having to meet with the comptroller to defend myself. There was nothing wrong.
I didn't say it was anonymous, because it's a whistleblower reward program, and in order to provide a reward to the whistleblower, it can't be anonymous.
So you're telling me the person can then find out who whistleblowed on them? That's probably the wrong conjugation of that verb, or who whistled, thank you. Who whistled on them? So if let's say, again, company XYZ gets a call from the comptroller, can I then call the comptroller and say, who whistled? Who blew the whistle on me?
No, you cannot do that.
So again, what happens, how do you protect a business from these false allegations? So then the comptroller comes, they turn my office upside down for 2 weeks. When you're honest and do the right thing, it's frightening and scary to be audited just because it's inconvenient. It's a tremendous amount of work. Everybody's always worried if, I missed something, I didn't dot an I, I didn't cross a T, and then I'm found to have not cheated. How do I find out who blew the whistle on me? I can't.
As with any whistleblower program, whistleblowers' names are not publicized to the person who is under investigation.
This seems like really bad policy to me. When you set up a bounty program to allow disgruntled girlfriends, boyfriends, ex-employees to blow the whistle, and you don't have any provisions to protect the person who's been accused of these things, this seems very wrong. I'm going to read this in more detail, but I am shocked that we are doing this in the state of Maryland.
Madam Speaker? The gentleman from Talbot in the Annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could the floor leader rise for a couple follow-up questions?
Yes, sir.
So what would stop, let's say you and I are in the same town and we're competitors in the same industry. What would stop me from filing a whistleblower complaint against you?
Anybody can say anything they want, but the comptroller's office, I assume their investigators would look, I don't assume, I know, that they would look at whether the complaint had any grounding in reality as a first step. And then, clearly if a complaint was found to be a false complaint, then that, they'd stop investigating.
Respectfully, when I make that complaint against your business and you and I are in the same town, what do I have to give the comptroller to prove my complaint?
These investigations in the comptroller's office will vary in intensity. These are criminal investigations, right? So, depending on the extent of the accused wrongdoing, the investigation will be different depending on the facts of the case. I can't give you an exact answer because every investigation is different.
Okay, so the answer is if I'm a employer or a business owner in the same town that you are in, I could call the comptroller and say your business is violating tax law, and that's the end of the conversation that I have with the comptroller?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I don't have to make any proof of claim. I just have to call the comptroller and say I want to whistleblow against your business. Is there any standard that the bill requires the person who's making the complaint?
So what you're asking is, would the comptroller's office undertake an investigation if somebody just randomly called them and said, hey, that business across the street is cheating on their taxes, and hung up? I think that the idea that the comptroller's office would be that incompetent, it defies reality.
I'm not questioning whether the comptroller is inadequate or incompetent. I'm asking what's the standard for making a claim, and it sounds like to me it's a simple matter of raising my hand, making a phone call, and saying I'd like to file a complaint against your business.
With or without this bill, anybody can call the comptroller's office. They can report something about taxes. They can report something that's untrue. The comptroller's office has in it a highly qualified, very professional team of investigators that do, frankly, and I think I've had my differences with the comptroller at times, but I cannot question the integrity or qualifications of the people that work for him.
Okay.
So, again, under existing law, somebody can file a complaint. They could file a false complaint. There are existing procedures and an existing investigatory process to deal with that. All this bill does is it tries to incent people to do the right thing and report wrongdoing by people who are bilking the state of Maryland out of millions of dollars in taxes every year.
All right, I mean, I'll save that debate for third reader, but my last question to you is the minority whip asked, what's the penalty? So I don't know that you actually answered the question. What's the penalty for making a false? What's the penalty for me making a false claim against your business? Is it a financial penalty? Is it show up in court and be admonished? Is the comptroller going to call and slap my hand? What's the penalty?
I'm happy to defer to the chairman of the Judiciary Committee.
Okay.
So,
Could you repeat the question? And I'd need to look at the bill a little closer.
Madam Speaker, this is on second reader, correct?
Yes, it is.
May I special order this bill for the purpose of amendment?
Could I just ask that you put your question out there one more time so that I know what
Well, I'm
question.
thinking you and I could perhaps do this offline as opposed to, and I'm going to have other issues and perhaps would like to offer an amendment on this. So if I could special order the bill.
So again, just to be clear, your question is if somebody makes a false statement, is that correct? Somebody makes a false statement, or if somebody commits perjury because they signed something under penalty of perjury, what the penalty would be?
Well, I think what the floor leader was saying is the penalty provision under this bill must be in a different section of the code. So you're standing because you can address the other section of the code. So okay,
But
sure.
if the good delegate, if the committee is okay taking a special order just for a little bit of time, I'm happy to look at it and come right back.
why don't we special order to the end of the calendar today?
Fine.
Question for the House. This is Special Order HB 804 to the end of the calendar today. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 892, Economic Development, Maryland Technology Infrastructure Pilot Program, Establishment. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Ways and Means.
Sorry, Madam Speaker. Move so much we consider the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1, or the amendment makes technical corrections, adds an additional member who has experience in venture capital or economic development to the Maryland Technology Infrastructure Authority established by the bill.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 944, Growing Family Child Care Opportunities Pilot Program, established. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The amendment clarifies that at least 3 grants must be awarded and specifies that grant recipients must be the governing body of one or more counties working jointly with a child care resource center that serves one of the counties applying. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendment has been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1047, Mail-in Voting Enhancement Act. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 requires the State Board of Elections to complete a report after each statewide election. Amendment number 3 requires voters to be notified that a mail-in ballot put in a mailbox after the last pickup on Election Day will not be postmarked until the next Election Day. Amendment number 4 requires local boards of elections to take into account certain factors when determining the locations of ballot drop boxes. Amendment number 5 requires local boards to establish a chain of custody procedure for the removal of ballots ballots from ballot drop boxes. Amendment number 6 strikes electioneering boundary languages from the bill. Amendment number 7 simplifies requirements for allowing voters to access information about the status of their mail-in ballot. Amendment number 8 prohibits tampering with a ballot drop box. Amendment number 9 requires the state board to contract with a usability consultant to review all public informational materials and forms related to mail-in voting. I move the committee amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the committee amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1166, Education, Physical Restraint and Seclusion, Requirements, Reporting, and Training. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 removes provisions of the bill relating to restrictions and requirements applying to the restraint and seclusion of students. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1182, Tax, Property, Tax Sales.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendment strikes the bill as written. New language requires the sale of a certain vacant lot on which the taxes are unpaid for at least 8 years. The bill is sunset in 2023. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1209, Sales and Use Tax, Peer-to-Peer Car Sharing, Alterations. Favorable amendments. Number 1.
Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendment maintains the sales and use tax rate imposed on certain passenger vehicles made available on peer-to-peer car sharing platforms at 8% unless the vehicles are part of a fleet that includes more than 10 vehicles, in which case sales are taxed at the same rate as short-term vehicle rentals. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Gentleman from St. Mary's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. A couple questions for the floor leader.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm looking at the bill and reading the fiscal note, but the bill has been amended. Is this an 8% sales tax on ride sharing, like a
So
Uber
let me
tax?
step back and explain what we're talking about here. This is a new industry that's appeared, peer-to-peer car sharing, right? It's not Uber, it's not Lyft. This is, I have a car, I'm only using it, 5 days a week. So on the weekend, I put it on this site and somebody can rent it, basically, right? So it's a new business model. It's starting to grow. A few years ago, the state undertook to create the business regulation structure for this industry through the Economic Matters Committee. But we punted a little bit on this question of how exactly it should be taxed. Should it be taxed similar to car rental companies like Enterprise, or should it be taxed differently, right? So we kind of had this temporary tax rate of 8%. What we've done in this bill is said that we will maintain that same tax rate for the small-time car owner who's just making a few bucks off their car. But if you have a fleet of more than 10 vehicles, you are in essence a rental car company. And so you will pay the same rate as the rental car companies.
So, okay, let me make sure I understand that. So if you have above 10 cars, you're basically a rental company, and the rate is taxed at what percentage?
11.5% is our current short-term
11.5.
vehicle rental rate.
But if you're just going to loan your car out via one of these ride-sharing apps, you're taxed at 8% on. It's almost like an Airbnb model,
Yeah, it's similar to Airbnb. So all of these are for people that are using these apps. The question is just at what point are you just somebody who's making a buck on the side with your car versus somebody who's got a business that's competing with enterprise and similar
How would that tax be administered? Would the app charge it?
It's a sales tax.
Okay,
And actually
so
we
it's a
modeled
sales tax. You get
Yeah.
1099 at the end of the year or something.
And we set this rate similar to Virginia. Virginia also differentiates at the 10 vehicle threshold.
Does Pennsylvania, D.C., or Delaware, any West Virginia have this?
So states are all states are figuring out how to as with any new industry, how to tax this industry. Different states have made different decisions about how to go about it. Some of them their tax code doesn't speak to this right now. Some of them match it with the car rental rates. Some of them do what we're doing, where we differentiate.
Okay, gotcha. Well, appreciate answering my questions. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Are there any further debate? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1255, Homestead and Homeowners Property Tax Credits, Access and Eligibility. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 requires the notification about a homestead tax credit be included in the base contract for the sale of residential property. Amendment number 3 requires the application for the homestead tax credit be presented to a home buyer at the settlement for the property. Amendment number 4 strikes the provision changing eligibility for the homeowner tax credit. And amendment number 5 requires SDAT and the comptroller to work with Ways and Means on an interim study about 1, simplifying the ways income is calculated for the homeowner's tax credit, and 2, making the homeowner's tax credit automatically renewable. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1351, Campaign Finance, Contribution through Third-Party Payment Processor, Transfer to Campaign Account. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendments allow the State Board of Elections to assess a civil penalty for violations of the bill, require the State Board to notify campaigns via email of the bill's requirements, and make a clarifying change. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments? Recognizing the young lady from Howard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the floor leader rise for a question?
Absolutely. Good afternoon.
Hi. I'm trying to make sure I understand this. Is this if someone contributes to your campaign through PayPal?
Correct.
And the law requires you to transfer that into your
Campaign account.
I just wonder why. I mean, that's I have no doubt it's very difficult to know when they come in and to make all of those transfers. And I'm just, I just wondered what the problem was that.
Well, it's not particularly difficult on most third-party payment processors. You can actually set it to transfer automatically, but if you aren't able to do that, you would just need to have you or your treasurer, someone affiliated with your campaign, checking it on a regular basis to make sure that the transfer is made within 7 days.
Okay, well, you can do it automatically, then I'll have to have you show me why. But why is this important? What's the purpose of the bill?
Well, as you know, any campaign financial activity has to be conducted through a campaign finance account, and holding contributions in a third-party payment processor delays the transparency of when those contributions are being made to your campaign account.
But why shouldn't it be simply before the next report is due? Because there is no reporting, there's no way for people to know before the report is put out.
Well, all of the financial transactions are to be made through your registered campaign account.
And
So
if-
this is making sure that if you're using a third-party payment processor, you get it into your campaign account promptly.
I still am unclear on exactly what the problem is if you don't transfer it within a week, if you transfer it within a month, before you have to report. I can see that you don't want to have contributions held in a PayPal account so that they don't show up on your report. That makes a lot of sense. But to put a short turnaround with a civil penalty, I think is a little bit harsh.
Well, contributions to a campaign need to be made to the registered campaign account, and the third-party payment processor is not a registered campaign account. So we need to get that transferred into the account. That's the requirement of campaign finance law.
So we're being illegal if we take any campaign contributions through PayPal now?
Well, right now, yes, it would be because we're in session.
Then we should
But,
all go to jail.
But,
It would happen sooner or later.
but other than that, assuming we were not in session, you can take contributions through a third-party payment processor as long as you transfer those contributions to your campaign account within 7 days. That's what this bill specifies.
Madam Speaker, could this bill be special ordered for an amendment?
That's fine. So, until when?
To the end of this calendar,
Next session?
end of the calendar.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is special order HB 1351 to the appropriate time later today. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The bill has been special ordered. Report of the Committee on Ways and Means, report number 26. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 1060, Charles County Board of Education membership alterations. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Thank you. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 alters the manner in which members of the Charles County Board of Education are elected and limits the issues the student member may vote on. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1142, Howard County School Redistricting. Public testimony. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1190, Howard County Board of Education redetermination of geographic attendance area. Favorable.
Question for the House is adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1343, Anne Arundel County Party Central Committees Republican requirements. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's nice to see how the other half lives over here. It kind of reminds me of my first trip to Hershey Park. Move so much be considered a reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The amendments require one member of the Anne Arundel County Republican Central Committee to be elected at large. Move the committee amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Judiciary, report number 21. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 89, Correctional Services, Diminution Credits, Education. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Thank you. The amendment limits the program to 1 associate or bachelor's degree, reduces the credit to 60 days per program completed or 40 days for an inmate serving a sentence for a crime of violence, and makes sex offenders ineligible. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Gentleman from Charles.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a few questions for the floor leader.
Hello.
Floor leader.
Thank you. I'm just perusing this bill. It comes to my understanding that I guess that individuals that are charged with either first or second degree rape or first, second, or third degree sex offense of an individual under the age of 16 will not be included for these diminution credits, correct?
Correct.
So the raping of an adult woman, they'll be included though, correct?
That's what you just read. That is correct.
In fact, the serial rapist will also benefit from these diminution credits, correct?
Am I a witness? Are we
Apologize.
on trial?
That's the only way I know how to do it.
Okay.
So it's my understanding that a serial rapist would also be able to benefit from these.
Say that again.
A serial rapist would also be able to benefit from these diminution credits,
It depends. It depends.
as long as they're over the age of 16, the victims.
Correct.
Okay, and lastly, an individual who willfully and premeditatively shoots and kills an individual, i.e. first-degree murder, they will also be able to benefit from these diminution credits.
So I think the way the DEM credit system works currently, and when we, a couple years ago, and you were here, did justice reinvestment, we took a second look at it. And so the purpose was, as you know, to get more folks out of the prisons or jails, which are overpopulated. So we took a look at the different types of DIM credits that you could receive. So the way the system works right now, you are correct. The only individuals who are not eligible to receive DIM credits are those who have done a sexual offense against a victim under the age of 16. So if you can list all the crimes that you want to, but they are currently eligible. So
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, I'd like to ask a special order this bill for purposes of drafting an amendment.
I mean, if you could have asked me at the jump, you could have stopped. Yes, that's fine.
No, that's a floor leader. I could special order this bill.
Later this calendar.
I'm sorry?
Later today.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Well, I haven't took the vote yet. HB 89 to be special order to the end of the calendar today. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill has been special ordered. Report of the Committee on Judiciary, report number 22. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 240, Criminal Procedure, Forensic Genetic Genealogical DNA Analysis, Searching, Regulation, and Oversight. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 alters definitions and refines requirements and procedures for forensic, genetic, genealogical DNA analysis and related searches of publicly accessible databases. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. The minority whip.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. This looks like a good bill. Is this, I've done the 23andMe. Is this going to protect my DNA?
Yes.
That sounds great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any additional comments? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Judiciary, report number 23. The clerk read the bill.
House Bill 315, Juvenile Law, Juvenile Interrogation Protection Act. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the sponsor of the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 authorizes the Court of Appeals rather than the Police Training and Standards Commission to adopt rules concerning age-appropriate language to be used to advise a child taken into custody of the child's rights. And requires law enforcement to maintain a record of the name of the attorney consulted by the child. 3, alters the circumstances under which law enforcement is authorized to conduct an otherwise lawful custodial interrogation. 4, requires an interrogation under the bill to be recorded and establishes related procedures, including policies for the use of body-worn cameras. 5, establishes a rebuttable presumption that a statement made by a child during a custodial interrogation is inadmissible if the law enforcement officer willfully failed to comply with the requirements of the bill. 6, requires the Office of the Public Defender to develop related policies and procedures. And 7, makes clarifying changes. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Recognizing Minority Whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the floor leader just give us a more layman's version of what you just said with all those amendments? What's the bill do now?
Well, the bill protects children against false confessions.
Can you speak a little closer to your microphone, please? Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing.
The bill protects children against making false confessions without being advised of their Fifth Amendment and Sixth Amendment rights. So it also preserves the Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, as well as it provides counsel while they are being held under custodial interrogation, and it advises the parents as to where their children are and if they are being held in custody or in custodial interrogation. The bill also sets a policy in which law enforcement must follow and notify that parent, as I mentioned, the parent, guardian, or custodian. And when there is a life that is being endangered, there are exigent circumstances that have been allowed so that if they are not able to notify the parent, guardian, custodian, and obtain counsel because it is impossible or impractical or unsafe to do so due to threat of life, then that is waived.
So a juvenile commits a crime. I just mean it more in like regular people language. So I appreciate that, but I didn't go to law school. So a juvenile commits a crime. He gets picked up by the police. Tell me what happens next under this law.
Well, it's hard to work with the
or
presumption.
they haven't committed a crime. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Presumption of innocence.
That's
right.
right.
So there's
That's right.
an
That's what we're working with.
allegation that a juvenile has done something, and the police come and tell me what happens next.
Exactly. So what happens next is the police officer will call or somehow make reasonable notification to the parent and say, I have your child. They are with me because they did X. And I'm going to, this is the location where they are. Okay, then that's the first call. The second call is going to be to the Office of Public Defender if they can afford an attorney, or to the attorney that is representing them. And then that attorney is going to advise that child of their Miranda rights.
Okay, and in the meantime, the police can't be talking to the child until
You
this
got
has
it.
happened. Okay, let me ask you about a specific case that happened and what would happen under this proposed House Bill 315. So we have a very sad story that happened in 2008. A young man named Nick Browning, who lived in Cockeysville in Baltimore County. He killed his parents, John and Tamara, and then he killed his brothers, Greg, who was 13, and Benjamin, who was 11. And he had hidden a gun in a public place where somebody could pick it up, but it was hidden. So, his parents are both deceased at his own hands. Who would the police contact at that point, especially since this, handgun is obviously a big concern? Is there some provision in this bill to take care of an actual situation like this?
Yes. The Constitution requires that an individual be provided with their Miranda warrants.
Yes.
It also provides that they have a right to counsel. So the person that they would call would be counsel. Because now we have parents who are deceased, and it sounds like in your scenario there is no one else available, under that circumstance. So they would call counsel.
So then I'm not, how long would it take? So I guess I'm just a little concerned about the timeliness, simply because of this story with this handgun that was hidden. Could this be done quickly? The counsel could get there quickly, so the police could then question him and find out where that gun is?
Sure.
So what's your version of quickly?
Pick up the phone. They would call counsel. Counsel can even advise them over the phone.
Okay, so it could be done over the phone. They wouldn't have to wait for the counsel to get there. Okay, so you've made a provision in this bill for that.
Yes, and also for video conferencing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The gentleman from Anne Arundel in the annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The floor leader, please rise for a quick question.
Yes.
So, you talked about a rebuttable presumption of guilt upon the officer. Can you walk me through that? And I guess what I'm looking for, or the root of what I'm getting at, is that there's a spontaneous utterance, and that's acted upon by the officer, or that statement turns out to be true. There's a rebuttable presumption of guilt upon the officer, and what is done with that as far as that officer's record.
So if I may, I would like to correct a couple of things. It's not a rebuttable presumption against the officer. It is a rebuttable presumption that the statement made by a child during this interrogation is inadmissible in a delinquency proceeding or criminal blah, blah, et cetera, if the officer willfully failed to comply with the requirements of this section. So there has to be a willful failure to comply.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any additional questions, comments? Hearing, Minority Whip.
Sorry, one more bite at the apple. I'm sorry. Thank you for your answers to my questions. This Nick Browning, would there be any change under this bill as to where he would be adjudicated? Would he have to go to juvenile court, or would he go to?
No, this bill doesn't affect adjudication at all.
Okay, so this situation that I, told, this story that I told, this bill, his outcome would be the same. This young man, Nick Browning, would be held. He would call a counsel. What if he refused to call? What would there?
Well, it's the law enforcement that's making the call. He would not refuse the call. It's law enforcement who's making the call.
So law enforcement would call counsel?
Yes.
Okay, and I guess at that point, would the police be limited in their ability to find this handgun he's hidden in a bush somewhere?
No. If he has counsel available to advise him, they're not limited. The police would not have a limitation on them unless there is some type of threat of harm that is articulable and imminent.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Recognizing the gentlelady from Howard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just have a question. While the law enforcement officers are contacting the parents and the attorney, say he has completed that, is it true under this bill that anything that the child says is sort of as if he didn't, is irrelevant? That if he says, I did it, I'm glad I did it, and I do it again, that cannot be held against him until his attorney gets there?
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Any additional comments to this bill? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Judiciary, report number 24. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 372, criminal law, drug paraphernalia for administration, decriminalization, favorable.
Question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. There being 124 members present, House is still in session. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 64. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 15, Governor's Office of Immigrant Affairs.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker. I got them. I got them all.
Has everyone recorded their vote?
Got them.
Does anyone care to change their vote?
Haynes was normal.
If not, clerk will take the call. There being 100 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 15, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 463, Maryland Health Equity Resource Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, clerk will take the call. There being 127 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 463, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 894, Education, Community Colleges, Collective Bargaining.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not,
Madam Speaker.
the gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a quick question for the floor leader.
Floor leader.
Absolutely. Right over here. Oh, hey. Sorry, didn't see you. So does that include all community colleges in the state? Anyone is exempt out of this bill?
It includes all community colleges in the state, yes.
Even the ones that have already have shared governors?
If it's a community college and they don't have collective bargaining, then this bill applies to them.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Speaker, I'll be voting red on this bill. I think community colleges are not factories. They already have shared governance between the administration, the staff, and the faculty. And implementing this bill will only cause delays in negotiation, but it also increases the cost of the colleges. So I would be voting red on that. Thank you.
The gentleman from Talbot in the annex.
Madam Speaker, I rise in opposition to this bill. and would encourage the legislative body to vote against it. These community colleges have to pass these costs on. It's either the state's funding, it's the local county's funding, or it's the students who pay the tuition. Make no mistake about it, this sort of legislation adds costs. It adds complexity to the relationship that we have with the folks and the professors that work on campus. No doubt this cost will be borne by the citizen who needs the community colleges most during this very difficult time. Remember that we've had an unprecedented demand for unemployment. People are displaced right now. Community colleges are a key element to giving people the skills and the resources to be successful moving forward. At the same time, we're passing legislation that turns upside down the principle that we should make community colleges more affordable and more effective in delivering programs to these folks. So for all those reasons, I would vote red on this bill and ask the same of the legislative body.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing gentlelady from Carroll.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This bill is another example of non-local control, and we keep talking about that over and over again, and I just beg the body to realize that we're all different areas. Our community college is one of the top in the state. Our community college doesn't want this. The people that work there don't want this. We have a great relationship between the management and the teachers and faculty at our community college. We're very proud of that. And to put for having someone from not in our district tell us that we now need to do what they do in their district, maybe it works for you, but I think the idea of local control has been really thrown out over the years, and especially this year, of not appreciating or respecting that our locals are all different. We don't have a problem that needs to be solved in our county. And if you do, I'd be happy to let you have your county engage in collective bargaining, and we'll give you that courtesy. And years ago, when the first community college wanted a collective bargaining, we respectfully gave them local control. And what happens then? You want everyone else to do the same. In our county, it's actually going to hurt us because we will have this separation between the people that are working together to work with our faculty, and now we have this independent group in the middle bargaining for people that don't want to be bargained for. So I'm going to be voting red, and one more thing about not respecting the differences in our counties. And we do well. I think people should be following what we do in our county and the outcomes we have, whether it's with our schools, with our community colleges, and the way we do business. But instead, everybody wants us to do what they do, and it's not necessarily any better. So I will be voting red and very frustrated that we continue to have people put burdens on other counties when we don't have the problem that needs to be solved. Worry about your own county and leave us alone. Thank you.
Gentleman from Talbot.
Thank you, Speaker. And just to shed another perspective on this, so for Chesapeake Community College, they're going to be doing collective bargaining with 5 separate counties. It's not like you're doing one agreement, and this is some simple proposal. I'm not even talking about the cost. We're just talking about the management. 5 counties. They're going to have to negotiate with 5 different counties. And let me tell you, those negotiations with the counties, they are not hospitable. It causes division, and it causes problems, and it causes hardship. Every time you open that door, you're opening an old wound. And so I'm not voting for this. There are a number of philosophical reasons not to vote for it, but just remember this hardship that you're creating on the rural community colleges that serve more than one county. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd urge the body to put a green vote up for HB 894. And for a couple of reasons, I've heard a lot of things, and I just want to make sure that everyone's under the same impression here, that this is an enabling piece of legislation. It is statewide policy and is a change, but it is not forcing anyone to engage in collective bargaining or forcing anyone to agree to or join a collective bargaining unit. This is enabling, allowing for the process to collectively bargain at every community college across the state. And I think there were a few things said earlier too about they were proud of their faculty, they were proud of their staff, as you should be. I think in full disclosure, my wife is an adjunct teacher at a number of different community colleges, and I'm not going to use her name, one, because she was very gracious to explain to me her experience as being an adjunct teacher for 8 years. And number two, I won't mention where she works because she's not protected by collective bargaining rights. She could be fired if my comments are misconstrued or, misunderstood in terms of where she was coming from. But I know that she's been working hard for 8 years with the intent of eventually, hopefully, becoming a full-time faculty member. And 8 years later, she went from making $2,200 for 16 weeks of work to making $2,400 for 16 weeks of work. Now, factoring into just doing silly math, just a little bit fuzzy math, if she was to actually become a faculty member, but they were to pay a faculty member for 16 weeks of work or even for 24 months of work at the same rate that they paid an adjunct faculty, they'd be making $25,000 a year as an individual, below the poverty rate. But let me be clear, this bill does not affect or deal with what we should be paying adjunct teachers or what we should be paying full-time faculty. What this bill is talking about is that there should be a conversation. It should absolutely be had between workers. It should be had between faculty and adjuncts. And right now, there's no table. You are dictated to and told what you're going to be paid. If you don't like it, you might be able to say something, but that really depends on how lucky you are to have a supervisor or somebody that's running that department that's willing to listen to you. And if you don't, you have no recourse. I urge a green vote on this bill. I want to make sure folks that are concerned about local control know that they still have it. No bargain can be agreed to if the county council or however your county deals with your community colleges isn't going to pass a budget that puts them in a negative or a bad financial spot, or that puts them out of business. It's not going to happen. Hasn't happened before, and it won't happen. This isn't precedent setting. Other counties have this. They do well. And honestly, the ones that do collectively bargain also don't have the highest community college tuition rate in the state. So with that, I urge a green vote for the body, and I appreciate the time and the comments. Thank you.
Gentleman from Western Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the floor leader answer a question, please?
Floor leader.
Yes, sir.
Is there any law or regulation or anything that would prevent any unit in any of our community colleges from joining a union or petitioning for or requesting a union without this bill?
Is there anything that prevents them from petitioning?
From joining a union, if they decide to get together and ask to join a union?
There's nothing.
Is it prohibited right now from them doing this? Is this?
Oh, gotcha. I understand. So, the question being, is anything preventing them from joining or collectively bargaining now? I think that there's nothing on paper that prevents them from, nothing illegally that prevents them from doing it. What's preventing them is that there's no process in which to collectively bargain.
So they could technically do it now anyway, even without this bill, if they wanted to.
They could try, but I think what we've heard from folks that testified for the bill were that there is a fear and that they know, and there's been proof that folks have been fired for attempting to do so.
All right. Thank you. Madam Speaker, on the bill, I'd like to speak in opposition to the bill. As you know, I represent Garrett County, and Garrett County has the smallest community college in the state. Garrett County's been a leader in the nation. Garrett County came out with a program to allow our high school kids, anyone that graduates from Garrett County high schools, Southern High School and Northern High School, to give them free tuition at Garrett College if they elect to go there. This has been really helpful for our college. The county pays for this completely under a program we set up. And if this bill passes, and I really don't think that our college would elect to do this, or our college employees, because we have tremendous staff and we have a tremendous college. But to pass a bill like this, I think would have a tremendous negative impact on our college, if our small community college, if in fact there would be collective bargaining. It would add to the cost of our county when we're already doing what we can do and have went well beyond what is required to be able to get our kids to attend our community college, to get that basic education those first 2 years, so they can then go on to higher education places if they choose, and a lot of times that's Frostburg. So I would ask the body to reject this bill and just leave us alone. Thank you.
Young lady from Howard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I represent Howard County and Carroll County. You've already heard from Carroll about the excellence of the community college. Howard Community College is one of only 2 community colleges in the entire country who has, for 11 straight years, been selected as one of the best places to work. I don't think that the people who work there are being prevented from having conversations about things. If this were simply an enabling act, it would say community colleges can unionize. But it isn't. As you said, it is a process which, as I understand it, creates the ability for union organizers from outside the colleges, from outside the campus, to come in and try to get people who are at the college to organize. That means that they are going to be talking about what's wrong, why you need to make the people do what it is you don't have yet. And if they are successful, it really does create a very unhealthy situation, at least from our perspective, and for community colleges that already have an excellent relationship. I just think it's the wrong thing to do. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My colleagues in the House of Delegates, I stand in support of HB 894, giving faculty at community college the right to collectively bargain is the right thing to do for both the workers and the institution. As an educator myself, I understand the importance of being able to enter into collective bargaining. And I had actually proposed legislation for CCBC faculty to do so. That passed our county delegation. And I have withdrawn since we have this statewide bill. Over the interim, I worked with unions like AFT Maryland and spoke with adjunct and full-time faculty to bring my bill to the table. Some of the educators I spoke to have been fighting this battle for over a decade. And if you talk to many of these teachers, it is not just about being able to negotiate a higher salary. That certainly plays a part, particularly for adjunct who deal with poor wages, almost no job security, and no benefits. But overall, it is predominantly about having a seat at the table for decisions that affect the school as a whole. It is about making sure that work conditions are fair and giving faculty a say in how their classroom and programs are run. These faculties always fight for their institution, for quality education. And we have obligation to show our character, our commitment, and our confidence to this institution and to this teacher. I would like to thank everyone for their hard work on this necessary bill, and I urge my colleagues to support HB 894. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I agree completely with the gentleman from Baltimore County. I also want to tell you, I appreciate hearing the stories from everybody about how proud they are of their community college. I am too. I'm wearing a Montgomery College mask today. It's a great community college. You know why our community colleges are great? Because of the people that work at them. Because of the staff that keeps the buildings clean and runs the cafeterias and teaches the classes. And all this bill does is set up a process, if they want to set up a collective bargaining unit, a union. That's all it does. If they're happy, if they're fine with the way things are going, they're not going to create a union. That's their choice. It's a decision. But without this bill, they don't really have that choice because there's no process to set it up. And people could be summarily fired just for even talking about the union. And I promise you, that happens. And it has happened. So I get there's disagreements about collective bargaining and unions, and ultimately what this comes down to is, do you believe that these people who help make our state the fantastic place it is, who help provide us with the most educated workforce in America, that these people should not have the right to join a union if they'd like to? That's what it comes down to. If you disagree, that's okay. I urge a green vote on this bill because I believe collective bargaining is a basic right that every American is entitled to.
Young lady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the words from my friend from Montgomery County. I did hear a bill like this. I heard the previous gentleman from Baltimore County, his bill came to our delegation, and we actually had someone come in from our local community college, and she said that we have so many people applying for these positions that it's overwhelming. People want these jobs. I personally don't have a union that protects me. I earn what I earn, and I don't eat when I don't earn. That is how my life goes, and I think that's how many people in here who are self-employed, that's how their lives go. Not everybody can collective bargain for a better deal. I did just pull up really quickly the difference in the cost for citizens. Montgomery College is very impressive, but they also have over $1,000 more expensive education, and they have had collective bargaining in their school for many years for their adjunct and their faculty. Versus Baltimore County Community College, their total tuition and fees is $38.94 compared to $4,900. I'm not really here to negotiate whether or not we should be paying people more. I'm just here to expose the fact that when we pay people more, someone will bear that cost, and that someone will be the poorest people in our communities who are trying desperately to better their lives. So we can stand here and virtue signal all day if we want to, but at the end of the day, that cost gets passed on, and the people who are going to end up bearing it are the ones trying to get an education for a reasonable price. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Cal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is really all about the dues and the unions, of course, because if you read the purpose paragraph, it says, and for the authorization and certification of the deduction of dues. It's all about that. And how has that served K-12 education in Maryland? How have the unions served K-12 education in Maryland? Not very well. Schools are still, for the most part, closed or barely open. And we have so many schools that are failed schools across the state because it's a one-size-fits-all. And who makes sure that stays that way? Oh, the teachers union. And now you want to do it to community colleges too? We know what you're doing. It's the ultimate in statism. You got to choose the government schools. You have no choice to go anywhere else. We're going to tax the heck out of you so you can't actually afford private school. And now you're going to bring that same failed model to community colleges. You know it and I know it. The people know it too. Yes, they do. Because if you actually went to downtown Baltimore and you talked to people and gave them an opportunity to go to a different school, they would. But the union will never let that happen, will they? That's what this is about. It's the same old Democrat policy, tired policy of paying off their union contributors. We're tired of it.
Point of
and
order.
It's failed.
Point of
I
order,
said
Madam
Democrat.
Speaker.
I'm not talking about an individual, Madam Speaker.
Point of
with all
order.
fairness.
The gentleman is again questioning the intent of members of this body in
No, I'm not.
violation of the House rules.
No, I'm not. I'm simply stating a fact. Everybody knows it.
On the bill, don't go beyond that. 'cause
Thank you, Madam
you're-
Speaker. I
You're
appreciate
treading
it.
water right now.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate it. So we see all of these closed schools across the state. And let me give you an example in my own county. I mean, you can look away, that's fine. In my own county, the school board made the decision to not have public comment during the pandemic. We're still in a pandemic, of course, technically, I guess. The school board met via Zoom, right? But apparently, you're going to get coronavirus if you let a parent speak up during a Zoom call. And we in Calvert County had to actually
Speaker.
reach into this. It's right on. It's all
Gentlemen,
right
are you on the bill?
I am, Madam Speaker.
The
Talking about the bill.
committee, the appropriation chair would like
I'd
to.
like him to restrict his comments to his own community college.
You know, I don't have to do that on third reader, with all due respect. I'm
I have three things here: my vote, my voice, and my reputation. So,
On the bill, because we have
thank
other
you, Madam
people want to
Speaker.
say.
So I just want to finish by saying this. We all know that if this bill passes, the same thing that's happened to K-12 education in Maryland is going to happen to Maryland's community colleges. And the reason why the majority party is so sensitive about this issue and jumping up is because they know it's true. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Gentlelady
Speaker.
from Baltimore City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to remind everyone that this is a bill about giving people an opportunity to make a choice. I've been hearing a lot over the past few days about choices. This does not confer upon any, institution. They don't just pass a bill and all of a sudden you have a union. People have to agree to it. So if everything is as peachy as I've been led to believe through some of the comments, what is there to worry about? They won't feel compelled to organize. But I do have to say, as the chair of the Baltimore City delegation, that I think we need to make sure we're not just using us as a punching bag when we don't have enough logic to lead us to a rhetorical statement of value. This is a bill about community colleges. It's not just let's jump up and have a nonsensical conversation about Baltimore City when logic eludes us. So thank you for your time, and I'll be supporting this bill. Thank you.
Gentleman from Caroline.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to clear up a couple of things. First, there was no evidence provided to the committee at all that anyone was terminated because they were talking or they were criticizing or they were speaking out against any sort of collective bargaining on campus. Now, there were some folks who testified that they were fearful that it might happen, but there was no clear evidence that anyone was terminated because of it. And there's another thing, too. Yeah, this is enabling. We know that. However, as we also know, we've been passing a lot of bills over the last couple of years. And so as you all know, that in order to get a vote, you need at least 30% of the faculty, all the employees to say we want to take a vote. That's only 30%, so that's a super minority. And then we also passed a bill that basically says that the employer cannot use state money to lobby one way or the other. They basically have to keep their mouths shut during this entire process. So the unions can go on campus and they can provide a one-sided argument as to why they should unionize or why they should have collective bargaining. But the folks who are actually running the organization and the folks who have a fiduciary duty to the organization have no say in the matter at all. So it's all one-sided, and this is what we've created. So this is where we are now, and the concern that we have isn't that we don't care about the employees. We absolutely do. The issue that we have is at the end of the day, we know that whenever there's an impasse between either state government or whatever the organizations are, most of the time the impasse is money. In fact, we had to put language in the budget this time that actually paid AFSCME employees because the impasse was salaries. And so we're concerned about the cost of education going up, especially in our community colleges. That's where our concern really lies, is that it's so easy to unionize because we made it so easy for them to do it. Yeah, it's enabling, but we've also created a one-sided situation where the unions really do have the upper hand because they can convince the employees to collectively bargain, but the folks, again, who have the fiduciary duty really have no say in. So they're only hearing one side of the story, unfortunately. And that's where our concern is. And then from my concern, at least in my district, where we have 5 counties who are in the service area of Chesapeake Community College, we're concerned about five counties trying to agree with 4 collective bargaining units and Chesapeake College all at the same time. I mean, that's going to create a huge disaster. And this bill does very little to give any sort of direction on how that conversation is going to happen. This is going to be a nightmare. I can guarantee you this is going to be a nightmare, again, on the Midshore. And the last point I want to leave you all with is that I haven't heard from a single employee at Chesapeake College, not one, that has talked about working conditions, that's talked about low pay, whether they're part-time or full-time, it doesn't matter. Not one single person has come to me and said, you know what, we need this opportunity. We need to pass this bill so it gives us the ability to at least take a vote. Not one person did that. So again, why are we passing a bill? Yeah, they wanted it in Montgomery County, and we passed a bill that now has collective bargaining in Montgomery County. But they're not asking for it on the Eastern Shore. We have 2 community colleges on the Eastern Shore. They're not asking for it, so I'll be voting red because I feel like I'll be doing a disservice to them, and I don't see the need in actually passing a bill that they're not asking us to pass in the first place. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Montgomery County in the Annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of this bill, and I thank the sponsor and the work of the Appropriations Committee in getting the bill to the floor. I heard a good bit of our colleagues talk about what they think would happen if this bill would pass. And what I know is that what will happen when this bill is passed is that workers will have a choice. And I don't see why we are opposed to giving anyone a choice in deciding whether or not they would like to organize and to form a union. That's what this bill does. It does not mandate, but it gives workers the choice. And I think they deserve as much, especially for the contributions that they make in making our community colleges what it is. I'm a proud graduate of a community college, and I know that my experiences were a direct result of the workers that made Montgomery College what it is. And so we should be listening to the workers. And if the workers don't want it, they'll decide. That is what democracy in the workplace looks like. But what this bill does is it gives workers the choice, and no one should be opposed to that. I'm proud to support this bill, and I'll be voting green. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentlelady from, floor leader. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just to address some of the other comments that have been said, I want to make sure that I say that I appreciate the concerns from the folks on the Eastern Shore and my colleagues from Western Maryland, because these were concerns that came up in discussion about this bill, that came up in committee, and you've all been stalwarts of your local community colleges and what's best for them. And I'm empathetic. I'm an empathetic guy. I know it doesn't look that way, but I may be the most empathetic person in my entire district. It's true. I'm known as Mr. Empathy. I walk down the district, in my district, and they say, there goes Pat Young, Mr. Empathy. They shout some other things too, but that's not important right now. What's important is that I understand and appreciate the concern and worry about what could possibly happen to smaller jurisdictions, which is why in the bill it's worked in and considered that there's a delay for smaller institutions. There's a delay for larger institutions. And even after the delay has sunsetted and they can start a process, they still can't discuss wages. Putting off a discussion of wages but focusing on workplace and engaging with management in a process that the state is already using. 30,000 Maryland state employees already collectively bargained effectively. There is a process. It's worked. It's in place. Not for community colleges, but just for the state. And we're providing the opportunity to do that here. I want to make sure that it gets complicated when you have a larger institution. Montgomery College, Prince George's Community College, Baltimore County Community College. And when you have a smaller institution, sometimes you can fix these problems at the local level, which means that they won't collectively bargain because they won't choose to. I've heard before that employees are happy and they're not going to do that. That's true. I'm not going to argue that. If you have a small institution at a local level and this bill passes and they don't want to collectively bargain, then they won't. But if a larger institution believes it's true and they believes that they need to have a place at the table because their needs aren't being met, or they're afraid of being fired because they've chosen to not work over going to a funeral, which is a story that we heard, that they're concerned about even providing details of their employment because they're concerned that even though they don't go to work in fear, they're concerned about things being misconstrued, they have a place at the table and they can be protected. I urge, again, a green vote and hope that you do as well, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Move the previous question.
The question is the previous question. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. HB 894 is on third reading and final passage. Clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? Not, the clerk will take the call. There being 95 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 894, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1023, Real Property, Condominiums, Homeowners Associations, and Cooperative Housing Corporations virtual meetings.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1023, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1347, Real Property, Impermissible Restrictions on Use, Portable Basketball Apparatuses.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1347, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 65. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 567, Montgomery County Cooperative Housing Corporations, Condominiums, and Homeowners Associations Reserve Studies.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 121 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 567, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 852, Property Tax Sales Homeowner Protection Program.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 852, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 854, Maryland Longitudinal Data System Center, Inclusion of Child Welfare Data and Governing Board.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 114 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 854, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 905, Education, Workforce Development, Sequence Scholarships, Eligibility.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 905, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 922, State Retirement and Pension System, COVID-19 related death benefits, clarification.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 922, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1033, Office of Healthcare Quality, Influenza Virus Immunization, Education, and Information Assisted Living Facilities.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1033, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 68. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 92, Procurement Invasive Plant Species, Prohibition in Use on State Funds.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 133 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 92, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 234, Criminal Law, Harm to Service Animals.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change your vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 234, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 272, Public Information Act, Required Denials, Sociological Information and Distribution Lists.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 272, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 418, County Boards of Education, Symbols of Hate Policy.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 120 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 418, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 931, Child Care Providers, Notice of Allegations of Child Abuse or Neglect, Aiden's Law.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 931, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 989, Public Safety 911, Emergency Telephone System Alterations.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 989, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1040, Health Occupations Pharmacist, Administration of Children's Vaccines Study and Temporary Authority.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 118 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1040, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1072, Charles County Community Service and Pretrial Release Programs Authorization.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1072, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 63. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 288, Audiology and Speech Language Pathology Interstate Compact.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 288, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 368, Task Force on Oral Health in Maryland.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 133 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 368, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 890, Natural Gas Strategic Infrastructure Development and Enhancement Surcharge and Plans.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 98 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 890, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 901, Anne Arundel County Hotel Tax Alterations, Distribution of Revenue.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 901, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1127, Garrett County Memorial Hospital Board Membership and Meetings.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1127, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1287, Alcohol and Drug Counseling, Alcohol and Drug Trainees, Practice Through Telehealth.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1287, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1311, Property Tax Exemption, Disabled Active Duty Service Members, Disabled Veterans, and Surviving Spouses, Refund.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1311, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1342, Economic Development Partnership for Workforce Quality Program, Alterations.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1342, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Special order calendar. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1351, Campaign Finance, Contribution through Third-Party Payment Processor, Transfer to Campaign Account. Favor report is adopted, amended, or adopted.
This maker of the motion is the gentlelady from Howard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question was answered.
Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. I'd like to recognize the protocol chair in the annex.
Well, good afternoon, colleagues. Just to break this up a little bit and give you all a little joy, I want you to take a moment to stand with me, join with me to recognize our pages for this week. This is their second go around here. And do what we do and make sure that you let them know how much we appreciate them. So I want to first introduce Haley Bassam from Harford County, District 35B from C. Milton Wright High School. Give her a round of applause. Segiv Berner Kadish from Montgomery County, District 20, Albert Einstein High School. Simone Flynn, Anne Arundel County, District 33, Arundel High School. Nina Jackson, Prince George's County, District 26, Oxon Hill High School. Ezra Kay, Baltimore City, District 43, Baltimore Polytechnic Institute. Eduardo Marin from Howard County, District 13, Oakland Mills High School. Anaya McNair, Baltimore City, District 43, Reginald F. Lewis High School. Okay, Chloe Nedzaletsky. Okay, Chloe, I'm sorry I messed up your name, but you're from Calvert County, District 27C, Huntingtown High School. Talalupe Alayude. Okay, I messed that one up too. But you're from Prince George's County High School. I'm Prince George's County, District 23B, and you're at our community college, the Academy of Health Sciences at Prince George's Community College. I apologize for messing up your name. Kaylee Perez, Cecil County, District 35B, Perryville High School. Pranera Popali, and I messed that up the last time I introduced you, and I apologize. Howard County, District 9A, Marriott's Ridge High School. Jordan Ryson from Montgomery County, District 15, Winston Churchill High School. Ariel Smith from Baltimore County, District 8, Eastern Technical High School. Florence Tien from Anne Arundel County, District 33, Broadneck High School. Hannah Allman, Frederick County, District 3A, Frederick High School. Matilda Varon, Anne Arundel County, District 33, Severna Park High School. Christina Walker, Charles County, District 28, Henry E. Lackey High School. And Angela Wu from Montgomery County, District 15, Thomas Wooten High School. Colleagues, give them all a round of applause. And to our pages, if you have the opportunity, please reach out to your representative to let them know that you have been watching them. All righty, bye-bye.
That ends the work at the desk. We will not be back this evening. We will be here tomorrow at 11 a.m. I'm calling on, and could everybody still remain in their seats? 'Cause I know when it gets to the end, you want to jump out of here, but I need Judiciary, going to hear from the chairs, and they'll give you further direction.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Judiciary Committee will have a possibly brief voting session at 4:30 today.
Health and Government Operations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We will be starting our public hearing at 4 o'clock. There will be a voting session after that. There is a subcommittee scheduled later, but it might get moved to half an hour from now if the subcommittee chair chooses to announce that.
Environment and Transportation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Environment and Transportation Committee will have a public hearing for one bill immediately after the floor session, and then we will go straight into a voting session. Thank you.
Ways and Means.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Immediately after the floor session, our Election Law Subcommittee is having a meeting on one bill. About 5 or 10 minutes thereafter, the full committee will be voting on 5 bills, and we'll also be voting tomorrow morning as a full committee at 10 a.m.
Economic Matters.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Economic Matters Committee will meet immediately following floor session for a voting session, and maybe some subcommittee announcements after the voting session.
Appropriations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Appropriations Committee will have a voting session immediately following today's floor work, and tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. we will also have a voting session.
And as regards to Monday, so plan to be here all day Monday. So govern yourself accordingly Sunday evening, Sunday afternoon, okay? I don't know if I'm going to say anything. Quorum call before adjournment.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? The clerk will take the call. There being 134 members present, the House is still in session, recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stand adjourned until Saturday, March 20th at 11 a.m. Legislative